the Mayans have been counting from 0 day all the way through till when the calendar sort of finishes where they are, which it finishes just, I guess, in their counting, they got up to 2012, which we're approaching shortly. Finishes on the 21st of December, which is the solstice of the sun. Having travelled its furthest direction south before it starts to be heading north again. So it's all sort of points to a time frame, but their calendar also begins with the conjunction, of the orbit of the Moon and Venus and Mercury and the Sun. All of these were lined up during this period of time, and asteroid A makes its entry, on this day. It travels, of course, and is pulled in, as we said, to the Earth, and can't escape from the Earth's gravitational field, and so it hits, But if we look at all various sort of dating techniques and things, there's the radioactive isotopes of carbon, that's designated as C14. It has a metabolic cycle, and these isotopes produce the highest. These isotopes are produced, in the highest reaches of the atmosphere by cosmic radiation, which are absorbed by life, and then when the life dies, this carbon has a life cycle of decay, and that cycle of decay, points out sort of all the post-glacial relics and things of when things shifted and changed, and those measurements that are taken from plants and pollen and things like that date back to a time of, in this region, of around 8,498 BC. We've found, of course, the remains of buffalo, and then in other regions we've found other sort of life forms where the C14 method is established, this time frame that we've been talking about as sort of changing. But there's the advancing ice in Wisconsin. That ice crushed the pine forest, and it snapped off the tree trunks, and it sort of left their tops pointing southward in the direction of the advance. But then the climate changes and the ice melts, and the disaster that's befallen the pine forest, is revealed, and it's been established by a professor using the C14 method that it happened around about this time frame, So I guess if we were having a court case and we were just sort of, thinking in terms that there was no witnesses, but that what we had to do was to patch together the various things that can have occurred from evidence that's left behind. Lots of evidence that we've talked about sort of really hark back to, this time frame. Yeah. So I think that's sort of very interesting, But the early history of the Mesoamericans there's often been sort of quite a bit of a dispute over the origins of the Mesoamerican civilization. It's an argument really over two lost sort of continents, really. Atlantis is one which we've been talking about, and Mu was the other, and where their survivors sort of have settled. The proponents sort of Atlantis, hypothesis sort of argue that the survivors of this lost continent spread to Africa and Central America, and that gave rise to the advanced sort of civilizations in Egypt and the Mayans. And then there's other followers sort of that follow Lemuria and Mu, and that they claim sort of refugees, from the lost Pacific continent ventured more into China, which absolutely there's lots of evidence to show that this occurred. So perhaps at some point we could do a show that's more about Lemuria, but it absolutely there is evidence to show that people did migrate from both of these regions at various times back in archaeological sort of history. And certainly we know that there's beautiful cities that's under the water, and certainly some of the more famous finds in the Pacific out off Yonaguni Island. There's some gorgeous, beautiful rock carvings and things. It's all covered and underwater there. And it's interesting that the measurements that's there are the very same measurements of Stonehenge, of the Pyramid of the Sun in South America, and also the Pyramid of Giza, where these people all use the very same measurement. It points to a common a branch of civilization that was involved, in all of this, and certainly Atlantis and Mu coexisted together, though Lemuria is much older than Atlantis, and possibly the Lemurians were the ones who really began Atlantis, yeah. So, we can definitely today we can go back to a time of Pangaea, where all the continents fit together perfectly. The Earth was 12 times smaller than it is today, and all the continents perfectly fit together. And there's absolute evidence of similar flora and fauna from where the regions of the Earth were all together, which is evidence of this one time, all the land being more together. Yeah. But anyway, I think the story really is a story that's about how it's possible for quite an advanced civilization technologically to have been in existence, and for a deluge and for huge earth changes to have occurred that can have just wiped out this civilization, and that then people lost a lot of this technology and insight, especially weather control and things, which beautiful earth structures today show how they were used in the control of weather by the Lemurians. And certainly all the huge pristine basalt blocks that's in the Pacific, in a region of islands still to this day called Nandol, which most all of this structure is underwater. But there's more pristine basalt blocks of rock in the water there than is in the whole wall of China. And these basalt rocks are all paramagnetic, which it can be reverse engineered to show how they could have assisted to cause the dumping of rain out of clouds to cause all that rain to be used by gardens and things on terraced mountains and stuff, which northern New Guinea is all terraced underneath the forest, and a lot like a mountain in the Philippines still to this day, which is terraced, and that huge, enormous earthworks it would have taken an enormous population of people to have built that which is left. But these rains would have been able to be dumped in that region, and that as a breadbasket, even to this day, can just about by itself feed all the people of the earth. Yeah, but we're living in a time where the metaphor for all of this could be interesting for us to consider. Of course, in 2006, I think that was $9 billion is spent on basic education by the whole world, and back in 2006, which probably hasn't changed much, in France alone, they ate $11 billion worth of ice cream. So France spends more money on eating ice cream than the whole of the world does spend on basic education. And the war machinery bill, just an enormous amount of money is spent on this war machinery bill. And the reason why that's so is because we have a system of money that's on the earth at the moment which really is not for people at all. It's to have kept people in a debt slavery. And it's amazing to me that lots of the politicians, to me, their language and things just appears to me to be the language of a young child, and that they really don't know what they're doing at all. But it's a question which is needing to be enlivened with discussion much more, but that the catastrophe that we've fallen into, I would say, is that economic egalitarianism doesn't exist in this day and age, and that the vast majority of people are just wage slaves, and that is one of the greatest demises of destruction of the earth, because no one is caring to be able to be creative, to actually really do anything about all the enormous plastic that's washing up on all of these Pacific islands. All around their coastline you've got plastic bottles and plastic everywhere, which, I know a technology which can reduce all this plastic to nothing, including all the radioactive material also to nothing, using the gas from water to implode all of this material to nothing. But we could be living in a time where containers that food is sold in could be made biologically degradable, and we can have a technology, as I said, to clean up all of the disastrous materials and things that's on the earth. We can have a civilization where free energy comes to be, because there's a great insight into zero point today, and there's lots of ways of being able to tap this radiant field of energy so that we wouldn't have to be reliant on fossil fuels. But it's very interesting to me that all our politicians, not any of them hardly, I think, except for Senator Paul, I think, is really having any knowledge much of economics and how we as a people should really own the growth of the money supply, but that when there's a hand above the government which exists, it can be not so easy for everyone after that. And I think we're living in a time where there really isn't much need for secret at all. We should be much more transparent with everything that's occurring, and that people participating in protected disclosures and conduct of official misconduct. We should have laws to protect such, and I think truth is this which is mutually beneficial, and if something has a mutual beneficialness, then it's not a secret. But I think that secrets really occurred because there is no real mutual beneficialness of information and things, and that people have been pitted against each other. It's such a shame because we're living in a time frame where if people look on the news, they can see what's happening in Libya and other places. And I'd say that as more time passes by, it seems to me that unless this can be corrected and that we can have an economic egalitarianism, we face a great disaster, and though it can be not as sudden as what occurred with Atlantis and Lemuria, it is in God's time as sudden as that, really. So we absolutely do need to be woken up more, and to be able to study and delve into the system that we have at the moment, the monetary system especially, because it's not really a system that actually really is working for the earth, its inhabitants, including all the sentient beings, the animals and everything. So it's just that the deluge that's happening today, which this story is a metaphor for, is the total digging up of the earth and the disrespect of nature, and the controlledness of nations and people, and that something really drastic has to always occur where people can have lost their lives and things before something else is put in place. But this which is put in place is something where it's still the same hand that's above the government, But it's a great deep concern to me to see the Balkan states all having been collapsed, by the 90s, and then of course Argentina being gutted, and of course, and now recently, of course, Greece, and before that, Iceland, and then, of course, now Ireland and things. But I think a great sort of reckoning is coming because it's unsustainable, utterly unsustainable. That money is created from nothing, and that could be owned by private persons doesn't seem to me to be a reasonableness at all. But what we can see, which is a great calamity, which has ensued, really has been caused a lot by this. But we don't need to have to link something unnecessarily, climate change, and all of the burning of fossil fuel and things affecting things, cannot necessarily be responsible for climate change, because the whole solar system has heated up. But it doesn't mean that we shouldn't be caring very much to be able to have more clean, free energy, and for people of the earth to be able to be looked after. But when we look at the amount of money that's spent in the military-industrial complex, the $600 billion in the United States, and perhaps $300 or $400 billion in China. It's just an enormous amount of money when it's looked at in terms that the Earth in 2006 only spent, as I said, around $9 billion in basic education for the whole of the earth. Yet in France that year, the French ate, $11 billion worth of ice cream. Yeah. So I personally feel this is the great calamity that's arising sort of more, we could live in a time where children are more born from a form of discretion, where education exists more about fertile phase of life, and of course all the trees having been cut down and the loss of shade has caused very little mature water for plants and things and agriculture. But I have an optimism that it's possible for people to come to a greater sense of things and for us to live more in a renaissance. Yeah. So the story of Atlantis is really that unless we're able to do this, a calamity that can occur, which really is something which could wipe out civilization more as we know it, and then all things can be returned back to more a primitive sort of form of existence, and certainly in lots of these countries where this has happened and war has been waged for control of resources, and people are pitted against each other. Lots of these countries have lost a lot of their standard of living. And then if we can just look to see what's happening in Libya right now, it's such a shame, really, and that people over a period of time have lost more and more and more of the liberty and pleasures that some people can have in some parts of the world, but that they don't have. I think that whilst people are oppressed and suffered in their fears, I think how can any person be unscathed by that? But we do see that even though such a great calamity is occurring, people are just surfing and they're oblivious really to this calamity that's occurring, and the anguish that people and children are suffering in some of these countries now. So my message is I wish that it's possible for people to become more awake, and hopefully this story of Atlantis and the connection of Atlantis and the Mayan calendar and some of this information, new information can awaken people more on the earth today to what's possible. Yeah. So anyway, I'm really grateful for people listening. Please do go to some of the other shows that we've done on our ancient past, and this lost continent of Atlantis, a scientific expose. I hope that this is can wake people up more to our past and to know where we're going. So anyway, I hope everybody's having an absolutely wonderful day as you've been listening to this, and I'd love to catch up to you in a future show, and I want to thank Lukey for taking time out to assist to help to get this show to you. So I love you guys. Thanks very much. Okay, bye.